prerequisites natin na yun. So, it should be voluntary. It should be with the assistance of a competent counsel. It should be in writing. Kapag po wala ang ano pa yung other requisite natin, it should be voluntary, made in the presence of counsel, it should be in writing, and it should be also in the presence of two witnesses. Ayan. Kapag po wala si counsel, ayan, yung confession natin, it must be any presence of a two witnesses. Ayan, tandaan niyo po yun. Meron tayong two witness rule in terms of the extrajudicial confession. In-offer natin as an evidence. It is sufficient for conviction or not? Yung extradition or extrajudicial confession, magagamit po ba yan or pwede yang magamit para ma-convict na agad kayo? Are you sure? Pag meron tayong extrajudicial confession, pwede na ba yung magamit para ma-convict kayo agad? Okay, so hindi po. Okay, so kahit po meron tayong extrajudicial confession, it is not enough para po ma-convict kayo. So it is not sufficient for your conviction. Dapat po it must be corroborated by corpus delicti. So even though meron kayong extrajudicial confession, kung wala po tayong corpus delicti, hindi po kayo pwedeng ma-convict. So extrajudicial alone is not sufficient for your conviction. Tandaan po ninyo, it must be corroborated by independent evidence of the corpus delicti, or there must be a proof that a crime has been actually committed. So yun po yung tatandaan ninyo kapag sa extrajudicial confession. As well as of course, kapag po sa extrajudicial, sabi ko nga sa inyo, voluntary. So wala po dapat torture, walang threat, walang intimidation na nangyayari. Pero kapag yan naman po ay judicial confession, of course, pag in-offer mo yan as evidence, hindi na po yan kailangan ng further proof pa. So, admissible na po yan as evidence in any legal proceedings kapag po judicial confession. Ayan. So, yun po yung si extrajudicial confession natin. Okay, so next. Which type of crime scene photo is taken at eye level to show the locality points of ingress or egress and overall surroundings? Long range, medium range, close up, or micro view? Para po makita yung overall surroundings, yung entry or entrance and exit, anong kanyon? Anong view? Okay, so this refers to, okay, so long range po yun. Long range or yung tinatawag nating overview. Pag po long range ang ginamit, kailangan pong ma-photograph yung entire scene, even the surrounding area. And usually kapag po long range, eye level po yan kinukuha. Dapat makita yung entrance and exit or yung mga specific landmarks na meron tayo gaya po ng mga street signs or yung mga house numbers. Pag medium range naman po, tatandaan ninyo, ang ina-emphasize po natin, ang pinapoint out natin kapag medium range are yung relationship. Yan. So, of course, it is taken closer than the long range. And then, ang kailangan po nating ipakita kapag medium range ay yung relationship ng specific evidence natin to another objects. Yan. For example, yung position po ng kutsilyo relative to the victim's body. Yan. So, kapag po medium range yan, kapag po medium range ang kuha, makikita po natin yung kutsilyo tsaka yung body ng victim. So, makikita natin yung relationship between the victim and then yung object na ginamit natin or yung evidence na kinuha natin. So, yun po yung medium range. Tandaan nyo lang, medium range, the relationship. Ayan, relationship shots. Para makita, maipakita na yung relationship ng object to another object. Kapag naman po close up, of course, nakafocus na lang yan to a single item or specific evidence. Ayan. So, usually kapag close up, meron na po yung katabing scale or meron na yung ruler para po makapture lahat ng details. Ayan. Even, for example, may serial numbers, ayan, may mga prints, ayan. So, doon na po yun papasok sa close up. Pag micro naman po, yun na po yung ginagawa sa mga laboratories. Ayan, ginagamitan na yan ng mga macro or microscopic photography. Ayan, para po makita na yung mga mga traces or mga marks na hindi po makita ng naked eye natin. So, yun po in terms of the photography. Okay, so next, what's the purpose ng pagsasabi natin, pagbabanggit natin ng Miranda warning para sa mga naaresto? Okay, so ginagawa po yan, of course, para ma-inform po sila regarding their rights. Ayan, so kapag po kasi hindi natin sila nabasahan ng Miranda warning, hindi po nila alam kung ano po yung magiging rights nila. And kapag po hindi nila nalaman kung ano yung rights nila, ayan, so pwede pong ma-violate yun. So kapag ganon, if the police or the officers fail to give them the warning or their rights, ayan, lahat po ng confession, lahat ng admission or statements na nakuha sa kanila ay hindi po magiging admissible. So, under po yan ng ating exclusionary rule. So, kung hindi nila alam kung ano yung mga rights nila before magbigay ng statement, that will be inadmissible. Okay, so that will be excluded or hindi po yan pwedeng ma-present as evidence in court. So, kailangan po natin silang i-inform of their rights. Okay, so next question. After a warrantless arrest, the prosecutor conducts an informal investigation to determine whether the suspect should remain in custody and be charged. So, what proceeding is this? Okay, so kapag ganyan po, pag warrantless arrest, ang kinakandak natin ay inquest proceeding. Pag inquest, ayan, usually, nagkakaroon po ng inquest kapag warrantless arrest. Doon yung papasok, di ba, yung in flagrante delicto, yung hot pursuit. Ayan, so kapag ganun po yung ginawa natin, kailangan pong mag-conduct ng inquest para po malaman kung dapat ba talagang magstay under the custody or dapat bang kasuhan talaga yung ating mga offenders or yung ating mga suspect. Nagkakandak po ng inquest, of course, para po malaman kung valid ba yung warrantless arrest na ginawa natin or kung meron po ba talagang probable cause para makapag-file tayo ng kaso. Ayan, si preliminary investigation or si PI, ayan, compared with the inquest, of course, mas matagal yan. Pag naman po preliminary, ito yung ginagawa kapag yung suspect natin ay hindi pa under custody or it is not under arrest. So, hindi pa siya under the custody ng mga police. Yun po si preliminary investigation. Wherein, ayan, pag PI, of course, alam nyo naman, kakonduct tayo ng PI kapag po more than 6 years or exceed ng 6 years and 1 day yung magiging imprisonment nila. So, ayun po in terms of the inquest and preliminary. Okay, so next. A suspect is caught in the act of committing theft in the presence of police officer. Okay, so nabanggit natin kanina, ito po yung tinatawag nating in flagrante delicto. Ayan, so caught in the act or in the presence of the officer. Valid po yan kahit wala po tayong warrant of arrest. Hot pursuit naman po, ayan, nangyari yan if an offense has just been committed and yung ating officer, meron siyang personal knowledge of the facts indicating na yun pong tao na yon ay kailangan pong ma-arrest or kailangan or nakapag-commit mo talaga nung mismong crime natin. Okay, so with this one, since caught in the act siya in the presence of the police officer, this is in flagrante delicto. Ito, nabanggit natin kanina. Pag hindi po na-inform yung rights ni ating officer or ni ating suspect, pag hindi na-provide sa kanya yung mga yon, ano pong mangyayari sa confession or sa statement? It will become inadmissible. Yan, nabanggit na natin kanina. Inadmissible po yan kapag hindi nasabi. Pero again, kapag po yan ay judicial confession, of course, ayan, so hindi na po yan nangangailangan pa ng further proof. Nagkakaroon lang tayo ng ganito kapag po yan ay extrajudicial. Okay, so next question. At the crime scene of a traffic mishap, some civilians arrive and rendered assistance to some injured people. A few minutes later, 3 police officers from the nearest police station arrive at the scene. A few minutes later, the IOC arrive, followed by the SOCO team. Who among the aforementioned will be considered the first responders? Civilian, SOCO, 3 police officers, or the IOC, or the duty investigator? Mostly answer Delta. Are you sure? Okay, so ito po ay yung sino ang magiging first responder natin? Yung ating mga police officers. Yun pong naunang tatlo. Ayan, so kapag po first responder, specifically it pertains to the police officers po kasi talaga. So hindi po talaga mako-considered yung mga civilians, ayan, na nag-render ng assistance. So kapag um, first responder, technically mga police officers po yon na naunang nagpunta sa crime scene. So with this one, nauna po yung tatlong police officers. So yun po, sila yung kino-consider natin as first responders. Si Soko, of course, ayan. So hindi naman po sila first responder. They are the one who is responsible for the collection of the evidence. So sila po yung nagpa-process mismo ng ating crime scene. So hindi rin po si IOC. Yan. So si first 3 police officers po ang ating first responders. Okay, so next question. What must be done first by the responding officers upon receiving a report of a crime incident? Ano ang kailangan gawin ng mga first responders natin? Okay, so alam niyo naman na yan, of course, save and preserve life of injured person. So first priority po natin, of course, ay preservation ng human life. So hindi lang naman po yan sa crime investigation. So any other investigation naman, first priority po natin ay yung buhay ng tao. Before processing the crime scene, kailangan po nating make sure kung mayroon tayong victim, of course, check natin kung may pulse pa, kung buhay pa. And then kung buhay pa, of course, bigyan po natin ng assistance, ng medical assistance. Yan. So, call ng ambulance 'pag hindi kaya ng, first aid po natin. So, yun po yung pinaka-main goal natin or first, objective natin kapag po sa criminal investigation. Okay, so next. Who among the members of the SOCO team is responsible for the designating command post location and ensuring exchange of information between search and investigative personnel? Okay, so sino po ang responsible? Okay, so of course, si ating team leader. And so, si team leader po, hindi po siya kasama dun sa nagpe-process mismo ng crime scene. So, siya lang yung nagko-command, siya lang yung nagbibigay ng mga trabaho para po sa ating mga team ng ating SOCO. So, sila yung nandun sa ating command post location or yung place kung saan po nagplaplano, kung saan nag-exchange or nagko-communicate yung ating SOCO team. Ayan, so sila po yung nandun and ang tawag po sa kanila ay sila yung mga tinatawag nating team leader. Ayan. Sketch preparer, of course, sila po yung nag-prepare ng diagram. The first responder, yung mga nauna. Assistant team leader, of course, siya po yung nag-a-assist in the absence of the team leader po natin. Okay, so next question. During a fist fight, Carlos struck Leo with a metal pipe. Leo later died from the injuries sustained. Investigation revealed that there was no treachery. What crime was most likely committed? Yan, gagaling nga. No, nabasa lang yung no treachery. Okay. So this one is most likely A. Ayan. So tama naman. This is most likely A. Homicide. Hindi naka-highlight. Sorry guys. So this refers to homicide. Ayan. So homicide po ito. Kasi naka-indicate naman na dyan, wala pong treachery nangyari. So, the crime committed was most likely homicide. Since si Carlo, intentionally, ayan, tawag dito, inano na ng tubo si Leo, nistruck niya ng tubo si Leo, then eventually namatay si Leo. Ayan, so as a result of the injury, namatay siya. Pero nakita po sa investigation, nakita sa statement natin na wala naman pong treachery, which is important as a qualifying circumstances para po maging murder po yung ating kaso. So kapag ganito, ayan, so homicide lang po ito. Since there was no any qualifying circumstances such as treachery, or the evident premeditation or cruelty or abuse of superior strength naman na nangyari. So, ito po ay considered lang natin as a homicide. Tsaka nakalagay na po diyan, no treachery was revealed during the conduct of investigation. Okay, so next, which decision demonstrates proper evaluation when a victim is severely injured but conscious? Securing the perimeter while ignoring the wounded individual, taking the victim's dying declaration while stabilizing the area, continuing the scene search instead of attending the victim, or waiting for the SOCO team to document the victim's statement. Ano po kaya yung pinaka-appropriate na gawin? Kapag severely injured but conscious pa si ating victim, nakita natin may victim, severely injured na siya, pero still conscious pa siya. Parang malapit-lapit pang ano, malapit ng ma-DEDS, gano'n lang. Okay, so kapag gano'n po, ang kailangan gawin ay kuhanan siya ng dying declaration. Ayan, so yan po kailangan nating gawin. Ayan, so kailangan niyang, of course, i-preserve yung buhay, well, of course, kailangan makuha yung necessary informations pa rin while maintaining po yung security ng crime scene natin. Okay, so kapag po merong severely injured but still conscious victim, pwede po natin siyang kuhanan ng dying declaration. Kasi po ang dying declaration ay admissible even though hearsay po siya. So exception siya sa ating hearsay rule. Ayan, so pwede natin gamitin or pwede natin siyang kuhanan ng dying declaration since it can be an evidence, of course, para po ma-identify yung offender or para po malaman kung ano yung nangyari nangyari or yung circumstances ng ating crime. So kapag po kasi dying declaration, ayan, of course, wala ng chance, wala ng dahilan pa para magsinungaling si ating victim. Ayan, so yun po yung rationalization do'n kung bakit po ina-accept as evidence si dying declaration. Kasi nga po, during that time, alam niyang malapit na siyang mamatay, conscious siya na malapit na siya, na impending na yung kanyang pagkamatay. So wala na po siyang chance, wala ng reason para makapagsinungaling siya. Kaya po siya nagiging admissible din sa court natin. Even though hearsay siya, ayan, so admissible pa rin siya. Same concept with the res gestae. Ayan, 'di ba kapag res gestae, spontaneous event naman siya. So same concept lang rin po kapag gano'n, 'pag may mga spontaneous event with the res gestae, even though hearsay siya, admissible siya since ayun, wala ring reason, wala ring chance para magsinungaling pa yung mga tao na magsasabi ng mga information po na yun. So yun yung concept natin with the dying declaration and with the res gestae. Kaya po siya naging admissible even though hearsay po yung dalawang yun. Okay, so with this one again, pwede po natin kuhanan ng dying declaration. And ayan, additional lang rin in terms of the dying declaration, magiging admissible lang po yan, of course, number 1, kapag aware po si victim of their impending death. Kapag aware sila na malapit na silang mamatay, ayan, or pwede silang mamatay, ayan, as well as ano yung sasabihin nila, ano yung declaration, ano yung statement nila, it should be regarding po sa kanilang pagkamatay or regarding sa injury na natamo nila. So hindi puwedeng maging admissible kapag po yung kanilang statement ay regarding po sa ibang tao or sa pagkamatay ng ibang tao or sa injury na natamo ng ibang tao. It should be regarding po sa injuries or sa pagkamatay po nila or sa crime na ginawa sa kanila yung magiging statement po nila para po maging admissible si res gestae or dying declaration rather. So yun po yung si dying declaration tsaka si res gestae. Okay, so next. A suspect stabbed another person during an argument. The victim survived after immediate medical treatment. Investigators must prove intent to kill to establish attempted homicide instead of physical injuries. So which evidence would best establish the intent to kill? Okay, so with homicide, kailangan po kasi nating i-prove na merong intent to kill si ating suspect. So paano natin nasasabi na meron po siyang intention to kill the victim? Okay, so pwede po nating masabi na meron siyang intent to kill kapag ang ginamit po niya ay deadly weapon na naka-aim po sa vital organs. Yan, so since to establish attempted homicide, kailangan po nating i-prove na merong intent to kill si offender. Ayan, so With this one, since the offender survived, pwede po nating, mag-rely sa mga circumstances kung saan, ayan, regarding po sa pagkamatay or sa ah, commit ng crime. So, with this one, ang pwede pong or pinaka-best na evidence na pwede nating establish na meron tayong intent to kill is paggamit po ng deadly weapon. For example, sa deadly weapon, kutsilyo or pwede pong barel. Ayan. So, mga deadly weapons po yon. And the fact po na nakatutok po yon or it was aimed at vital organs, for example, sa chest, sa leeg, sa abdomen, or sa mismong puso. Ayan. So, kapag ganun po, pwede po nating ma-establish na meron pong intent to kill yung ating suspect or yung ating offender. So kapag po sa intent to kill, ayan, pwede po nating malaman na merong intent to kill, gaya po sa nabanggit natin, based from the nature of the weapon na ginamit, from the location and the severity of the wounds, and of course, the manner of the attack. In the manner of the attack, for example, sinaksak ka sa nakatalikod ka. Ayan. So, ganun po. Pwede po natin masabi na merong intent to kill kapag ganun. And of course, yung conduct po ni offender before nung crime, during nung crime, and even after the crime po. Ayan. So, kapag po sinaksak kayo sa leeg, ayan, pero nabuhay kayo, ayan, pwede po nating kasuhan yung tao ng attempted homicide. So, since we can prove that there is an intent to kill, ayan, so pwede po siyang makasuhan ng attempted homicide. So, hindi na lang po yan merely physical injuries since meron po tayong mapoprove na intent to kill with the use of the weapon use and the location and the severity of the wounds na nakuha po ni victim. So, yun po si homicide. Okay, so next, investigators immediately transferred a homicide victim's body before photographs and measurements were taken at the scene. So, what mistake in the homicide investigation was committed? Ano po kaya yung nagawa nating mali kapag tinanggal natin agad yung biktima or yung bangkay ng biktima before natin picturean? Okay. Ano yung mali natin nagawa? Okay, so yun pong mismong pagtanggal nung bangkay before any documentation. Okay, so alam niyo naman po 'di ba, in any crime scene naman, in any crime scene, dapat po ma-document muna before po natin galawin, 'di ba? Meron po tayong MAC rule, do not mutilate, alter, or contaminate yung ating mga pieces of evidence or yung ating crime scene. So we have the general rule na kailangan pong properly documented muna lahat before po natin i-remove, i-disturb, or igalawin kung ano man po yung mga nasa crime scene. Ano po ba yung mga documentation na pwedeng gawin? Of course, the photography, the sketching na nabanggit natin kanina, the measurements, and mismong pagre-record ng position and condition po dapat nung body. So yung ginagawang pag-chalk, ayan, 'di ba? Nakita niyo yun, dapat magawa mo na yun before natin i-lift yung body and dapat ma-sketch and ma-picturean din po. So hindi po pwedeng tanggalin muna tsaka lalagyan ng chalk. Ayan. So hindi na rin natin alam yung reference, 'di ba? So kailangan pong ma-document muna 'yan before po natin tanggalin yung body ng victim. Yan. So wala po dapat gagalawin na any physical evidence. Hindi lang naman yung body po ng mismong victim. So any physical evidence na tatanggalin sa crime scene, it should be properly documented and measured first. So yun po yung rule natin in terms of the investigation. Okay, so next, why is exhumation of a body considered difficult in homicide investigation? Familiar po ba kayo with exhumation? Alam niyo ba kung ano si exhumation? Nandiyan pa ba kayo? Okay, so when we're talking about exhumation po, yan po yung process kung saan nailibing na yung bangkay. Wherein, ayan, nailibing na yung bangkay, pero kapag sa exhumation, anong gagawin? Ihuhukayin po ulit yan. Huhukayin natin yung mga nakalibing and then magka-conduct tayo ng examination. Ayan, so yun po yung si exhumation. Okay, so based from that, kapag po hinukay natin yung nakalibing ng bangkay for the examination para ma-examine siya, ano kaya? Bakit naging mahirap for the conduct of homicide investigation? Nakalibing na tapos hinukay natin ulit tapos examine natin. Tingin niyo ba meron pa tayong makukuhang ano dun, makukuhang mga information 'pag in-examine natin yun? Tingin ninyo, bakit siya mahirap? Okay, so dahil po ano, nag-lapse na yung ayan, lapse of time of lapse of time complicates examination and conclusion. Ayan, so mahirap na po 'yan sa homicide since nag-lapse na po yung time. So kasi kapag nakalibing na 'yan, of course, from, specific time, yung iba nagde-decompose na, nagde-deteriorate na yung katawan natin, 'di ba? So alam niyo 'yan, naagnas na or nabubulok na yung katawan kapag nilibing na po natin 'yan. So as time passes by, ayan, so nade-destroy na po yung mga physical evidences or physical pieces of evidence na meron din tayo dun sa mismong katawan. So as time passes, yung mga tissues natin, of course, nagde-decompose na yan. Yung mga wounds or injuries na natamo natin, mahihirapan na po yang examine. So yung mga kung may toxins man tayo sa katawan, of course, pwede na po yang mag-disappear. Ayan, mahirapan na rin tayong i-determine yung exact cause and manner ng death since ah ayun nga, nade-decompose na po tayo. So, yun po yung nagiging problem kapag po, nag-conduct tayo ng, investigation and nagkaroon din po ng exhumation. So again, exhumation, ayan, so tatanggalin natin ulit yung nakalibing na, itatanggalin po ulit natin dun and then magka-conduct tayo ng examination. So yun po si exhumation. Okay, so ano naman yung ano nun, tawag dito? Kabaliktaran niya 'pag kabapatay pa lang or kapag hindi pa nalilibing. So yun po yung examination naman na tinatawag natin 'pag hindi pa nalibing, ay yun yung po tinatawag nating autopsy. Ayan, 'di ba? Yung autopsy na tinatawag natin. Okay, so yun po naman yung procedure wherein nag-a-undergo po ng examination yung corpse or yung bangkay. Ayan, dina-dissect natin, dine-determine natin yung cause of death, manner of death, ayan, or para ma-evaluate natin kung may disease or injury na natamo nung namatay po yung ating victim. So, kaibahan po 'pag exhumation, ayan, yung nakalibing na, huhukayin po natin ulit for the purpose of examination or medical legal purposes. Ayun lang tatandaan niyo in terms of exhumation. Mahirap na 'yan kasi nga po naagnas na, nade-decompose na po yung katawan. So, mahirap na siyang i-examine. Okay, so next, a woman intentionally stabbed her live-in partner during an argument, causing his death. They had been living together for several years. So what crime was committed? Okay. Okay, so mostly answered. Bravo. Okay, so tama naman. This can be considered as a homicide. Bakit? The offender intentionally killed another person. Pero yung relationship between them, hindi po yan mag-fall on into parricide. Ayan. So even though they are live-in partner for several years, hindi po siya papasok for parricide. Kasi meron lang pong specific relationship para po mag-fall on yan into parricide. Okay, so magiging parricide lang po yan kapag, of course, legitimate or illegitimate parent or yung child, legitimate ascendant or descendant, or the lawful spouse. Lawful spouse po ang kailangan para ma-considered siya as parricide. In this situation, yung victim natin was only a live-in partner. So meaning to say, hindi po sila legally married. So kaya po hindi siya magfo-fall on sa parricide natin. And since there is no qualifying circumstances mentioned sa ating scenario, hindi rin siya magfo-fall on into murder. So kaya po homicide lang siya. And of course, hindi rin siya magfo-fall on into infanticide. So alam niyo naman kapag infanticide, you kill the child less than 3 years old or 72 hours. So in fact, with this one, hindi naman po infant, hindi naman po sanggol yung namatay. So hindi po siya mag-fall on into infanticide. And we also have here the term uxoricide. Ayan. So si delta uxoricide, ayan. So yan po yung specifically yung tawag kapag pinatay mo yung wife mo. Ayan. So it refers the killing of one's wife. Ayan, so sa revised penal code hindi naman natin, nire-recognize tong term na 'to. Ayan, so still, ayan, so kapag gano'n, 'pag legally married sa parricide pa rin siya. So ayun po yung, si homicide pa rin since live-in partner lang po siya, hindi po siya magfo-fall on into parricide po natin. Okay, so next. Which of the following must be clearly established to classify a killing as parricide rather than homicide? Okay, so yun na po yung nabanggit natin kanina. There must be, ayan. Sir, there must be a proof of legal or blood relationship between offender and the victim. So para po ma-classify siya as parricide, nabanggit nga po natin kanina, there must be a legal or blood relationship. Okay, so again, mag-a-apply lang po yan kapag sa father, mother, or child, whether legitimate man yan or legitimate. Or yung mga other legitimate ascendants or descendants or kapag lawful spouse po ng offender. Para masabi nating parricide yan, of course, there must be a proof of their relationship. Ano po yung mga proof na pwede nating maibigay? Of course, the certificates. Ayan. Marriage certificate, birth certificate po ng mga offenders or ng mga victim natin para po mag-classify siya into a parricide. Ayan. Tandaan po ninyo, pag parricide ang pinag-uusapan, ang important element or essential element po niyan ay yung relationship. Para malaman kung homicide po ba yan or parricide, kailangan tignan natin si relationship po nila. Ayan. So, yun po yung si homicide tsaka si parricide. Okay, so next. What type of rape is committed by an ascendant of the offended woman? Marital, incestuous, statutory, or acquaintance. Type of rape committed by an ascendant of the offended woman, marital, incestuous, statutory, or the acquaintance. Statutory. Are you sure? Marital. Committed by an ascendant of the offended woman. Ascendant. Okay, so pwede yung tito, tita, ganyan. Okay, so ang tawag po dyan ay incestuous rape. Incestuous po. Nakakommit yan kapag po si offender related po siya sa victim, either by blood man yan or by affinity. Ayan. So, kapag po ang ating offender ay parent, ascendant, step-parent, step-parent, guardian, or relative by consanguinity or affinity, that can be considered as incestuous rape. Okay, so ano po ba yung mga types of rape na meron tayo? So, ayun nga, incestuous, kapag po yung ating offender ay relative po or related sa ating victim by blood man yan or by affinity. Yan. So, it refers to the rape committed by an ascendant of the offended woman. Kapag naman po marital or the spousal rape, of course, alam niyo na yan, pag po yung mag-asawa and then pinilit po ng isa na magkaroon ng sexual intercourse, pwede po siyang makasuhan ng rape pa rin. So, that is called, or yan po yung tinatawag nating marital rape. Acquaintance rape, ayan naman po kapag kakilala po natin or kakilala ninyo kung sino po yung offender. Ayan. So, yun po yung tinatawag natin acquaintance or date rape po na tinatawag natin. Statutory, kapag po yung ating offended party, yung ating victim ay under 16 years of age or is demented. So even though wala pong circumstances na mention, yan, provided, ayan, na under 16 po si ating victim, magfo-fall on po yan sa ating statutory rape. So yan po yung different kinds of rape na meron tayo. Okay, so next question. in terms of the physical injuries, during investigation, the victim's injuries healed within 5 days and did not prevent work. What offense is most applicable? Okay, so is it serious, slight, or light, or very serious physical injuries or attempted homicide? Okay, so kapag po ganyan, okay, so tandaan nyo in terms of the physical injuries, ayan, so usually, um, tawag dito, kina-classify po natin yan based on the days kung saan hindi po sila work or nakapag-function, 'di ba? Or ilang araw sila na-hospitalize. So kapag po sila ay nag-healed within 5 days lang, so magfo-fall on po 'yan under ng slight physical injuries lang. Ayan, so slight physical injuries lang dahil nag-healed naman po siya within 5 days and hindi naman po siya nag-stop na mag-work, hindi naman siya umabsent. Ayan, so sa atin pong criminal law, ayan, so kapag po na-incapacitate yung victim natin para makapag-work for 1 to 9 days, yun po yung tinatawag nating for slight physical injury. So, usually mga minor injuries lang yan na 1 to 9 days lang naman. So, maximum ng 9 days na naging incapacitated po sila or maximum of 9 days na nag-healed yung kanilang injuries. Ayan. So, ang tawag po doon or mag-fall on yun sa slight physical injuries. Pero kapag yan ay yung victim natin naging incapacitated siya for work or nag-require ng medical assistance for 10 to 30 days, dun na po papasok si less serious physical injuries. Ayan. So, hindi ko lang para nilagay. Ayan. So, kapag po 10 to 30 days, ayan, na naging incapacitated or nagkaroon ng healing process si ating victim within 10 to 30 days, dun po papasok si less serious physical injuries. But kapag po yan ay more than 30 days or kapag nag-lead na po yung ating injury into the loss of body part, and for example, nawalan siya ng kamay, nawalan siya ng paa, or nawala yung tenga niya, nabulag siya, ayan. Naging insane siya, nabaliw siya dahil dun sa injury na natamo niya. Ayan, kapag po gano'n, dun po siya magfo-fall sa serious physical injury. Tatandaan niyo lang yung time frame lang rin natin yung days. Kapag po slight, 1 to 9 days, less serious, 10 to 30 days, more than 30, that leads to the insanity or permanent deformity, dun po si serious physical injuries. Okay, so next question. A patient shows no heartbeat, no breathing, and no brain activity despite complete resuscitation efforts. So which kind of death is this? Apparent, somatic, cellular, or clinical shock? Okay, so pag po ganito, pag completely and irreversible cessation na ng vital functions, pag wala na pong heartbeat at all, wala nang breathing, wala nang brain activity, ano na po yan? Okay, so yan na po yung tinatawag nating somatic death. Ayan, so tandaan po ninyo, ayan, kapag ganyan na po yung condition ng tao, yan na po yung somatic death na tinatawag natin or tinatawag po nating clinical or systematic death. Wherein, yung buong pagkatao na po, buong katawan na as a whole na, wala na po talaga or namatay na po yung isang tao. Kapag apparent death naman po, that is a temporary condition wherein, ayan, nagiging faint na or difficult na to detect yung signs of life gaya po ng breathing, ng heartbeat, pero pwede pa pong i-revive si ating patient or yung isang tao. Pero kapag somatic at all kasi, 'pag somatic, 'di na po siya kayang revive at all. So, yun po yung talagang deaths na kapag somatic death. 'Pag cellular death naman po, ayan, si cellular death usually, kasunod yan ni somatic death. Wherein, kapag po after na ng somatic death, so gradually, yung mga cells natin, yung mga individual body cells natin and tissues natin, they gradually die or sumusunod na rin po silang mamatay due to the lack of oxygen. So kaya nga po tayo nagkakaroon na ng postmortem changes because of this one, because of the cellular death. Tandaan niyo lang, after somatic death, dun po susunod si cellular death. Ayan. Clinical shock naman, medical emergency po 'yan na nag-i-involve ng, clinical shock ibig sabihin, yan yung medical emergency na hindi po nagkakaroon ng, blood circulation. So, hindi dumadaloy yung dugo natin, but still puwede rin pong i-revive or puwede pang ma-treat ulit si patient po natin or yung isang tao. So, yun po yung mga deaths na meron tayo. Okay, so next one. A victim sustained a superficial injury caused by scraping of the skin after being dragged across a rough concrete surface. So, what type of injury was sustained? Abrasion, contusion, crushing wound, or stab wound? Okay, so this specifically refers to, yan. So, alam niyo naman to. This refers to abrasion. Abrasion or tinatawag natin, mas kilala natin bilang gasgas, di ba? Ayan, so when we're talking about abrasion, ayan, yan po yung open wound na nangyayari kapag po na-i-rub yung skin natin against a rough surface. Ayan, so pwede rin yung tawagin na scrape or graze. Ayan, so yan po, nangyayari yan kapag yung ating skin, ayan, ay nakapag-came in contact with the rough surface or with the hard ground. So, yan po yung tinatawag nating gasgas in Tagalog. Tandaan niyo lang po kapag abrasion sa surface layer lang po or the superficial layer lang ng skin natin. Sa pinakamababaw na skin lang po natin nagkakaroon ng abrasion. Okay, so next one is we have the contusion or yung mas kilala nating pasa in Tagalog. So, yan naman po, that is an injury na natatamo natin sa mga tissues na natin. Yan. So, that is an injury to tissues with skin discoloration and without breakage of the skin. So, yan na po yung nangyayari kapag meron tayong pasa. Yan na yung mismong pasa na nakita natin. Wherein, nagkakaroon ng injury sa mga tissue pero hindi po nagkakaroon ng breakage yung skin natin, hindi siya nagkakaroon ng gasgas. So, yun po si contusion. Sa may tissues itself siya, nagkakaroon ng injury kaya po nagkakaroon ng skin discoloration. Okay, so we also have the, ano pa ba yung mga wounds na meron tayo? Okay, so we also have the stab wound. The stab wound naman, of course, that is caused by sharp edge and sharp pointed instrument. Gaya po ng mga knife, ayan, ng mga bola natin. So, yun po yung pwedeng mag-cause ng stab wound. We also have the term hematoma or yung mga namuong dugo. Ayan, so yung injury naman po na yon that is usually caused by a broken blood vessel. Ayan, so usually kapag hematoma, 'pag may namuong dugo, ayan, so dun na po nagkakaroon or nangangailangan na yun ng surgery or usually, ayan, nangyayari po yun kapag merong na-damage na blood vessel, ayan, during the surgery or kapag meron pong natamong injury. Ayan, so yun po yung mga different kinds of wounds na meron tayo. Okay, so another, ayan, para pa rin po sa mga kinds of wounds. Small circular wound is present on the chest with minimal external bleeding but severe internal damage. What is best classification? Abrasion, incised, laceration, or punctured wound? Okay, so, ayan. O, di ba? Ang dali ng SCI 1. O, ba't may sumasagot ng Bravo? Okay, so this refers to punctured wound. Bakit po siya naging punctured wound? Tingin niyo, bakit siya naging punctured wound? Kasi po meron lang tayong small circular wound. Walang external or minimal external bleeding pero meron tayong severe internal damage. Wherein kapag punctured wound po kasi usually that is caused by a pointed or narrow object na nagpe-penetrate sa loob ng katawan. Ayan, so it can penetrate into the deeper level or into a deeper part po ng body natin. Wherein they only create small external opening. And then, ayan nga po, minimal external bleeding and potentially severe injury or organ damage. So, in this situation, makikita po ninyo, small and circular lang yung ating naging injury. And located siya sa chest and meron siyang little na bleeding, external bleeding lang. And yun po yung typically na characteristics po ng